Thank you for joining us at our meeting room, Seeing Opportunity in Devastation, Stories to Inspire. And our theme has been literally to develop the eyes to see and then switch from a buyer's market to a seller's market and then staying there. And it's quite interesting. Last week, Ed shared a little bit around pumpkins and all broken down warships, and it was quite interesting as he described the situations that each of these countries found themselves in, and it took somebody, a few entrepreneurs with vision, and to spot the opportunity where there was none seemingly, but to develop that eyes and then to have the courage um, to pursue that opportunity. Well, Ed, you've got the stage. Welcome, and you can take it away.
Thanks very much, Jacques. Yeah, well, last week we talked about some quite innovative ideas of how you become some take something fairly ordinary. In one case, it was a record crop of pumpkins, and in the other case, it was an old aircraft carrier that needed to be scrapped. And from those apparently sort of fairly ugly situations where the pumpkins were nobody would buy because there were too many, and the old aircraft carrier that everyone hated scrapping but nobody wanted. Um, People created hugely successful businesses running out of that. And I'll just mention another example, which we didn't have time for last week. But I'm told that in Indonesia, the ride hailing service there is not one of the big internationals. It is a local service. And they've differentiated themselves by looking at the local conditions. And apparently, especially in Jakarta, the traffic is horrendous, as it is in many Asian cities, which are very large. Um, and when it rains big time because you get the monsoon rains there, and the city is a disaster. Can take apparently 5 hours to do a journey in the city. So the ride hailing service there is very different to the normal. They use cars like normal ride hailing services, but they also have fleets of other things. They have fleets of minibuses, they have fleets of motorbikes, and the motorcycles are hugely successful. So you haul up your Uber equivalent or whatever it is, and you say, I want a motorcycle because I want to get through the traffic quickly. And the motorcycle arrives with a spare helmet and maybe a rain suit and a pannier for the lady's handbag or the gent's briefcase or laptop, and off you go through the traffic, and you can weave your way through the traffic and get to your destination quickly. They have three wheelers, tuk tuks, they have cars, they even have a couple of helicopters available. All um, all franchised owners, the app owns none of them, that subscribe to the service and pick up customers as are needed. So there they've taken what was a revolutionary concept and re-revolutionized it, made it something totally different, where the whole goal was to get their passenger to their destination safely and without undue delays. So, and apparently the dominant ride-hailing service in Indonesia. Very clever.
Hmm.
So that's the way to stay at the top of the ladder. And we've talked previously about what you do if you're on the bottom. And the first rule is if you're right down at the bottom of the buyer's market, is stop digging, stop trying to make it worse for yourself. Recognize where you are and make some changes.
Hmm.
Now, what I want to talk about this week is the middle of that market, where you are somewhere between a seller's and a buyer's market. And I think this is an area that many people, maybe most people, trade in, where you're not absolutely certain which side of the market is you. Are you facing very severe competition? Are you continuously under heavy price problems, pricing competition? Are you one of 100 people who tendering for a job, or 1,000 people tendering for a job, yeah, then you're probably fairly stuck in the middle or lower end of the buyer's market. Or is it a little bit better than that? Yes, there's some competition, but we hold ourselves against the competition. We win our customers, they win their customers. We don't lose a lot of customers to them, we don't think. They don't lose a lot of customers to us, as far as we know. And we sort of sail on with the market along the line. There is always price pressure. There's always a fierce fight, but and there's probably not a lot of new business coming into my marketplace. Now you're probably sitting a little on the borderline, and you can stay there if you make money. You can stay there and be very happy and be a good entrepreneur, make a lot of money for yourself, and employ people and make money for them and their families, and that's great. You're supporting a supply chain and you're doing good work in the community. The only thing is you're probably not going to grow. And there are many examples. One of my clients a little while ago, when we looked at their numbers, they called me in. They were looking for some improvement. We asked them, one of the questions I asked them, what percentage of your business comes from new customers, customers you've never dealt with before? And when we did the analysis, the percentage was zero, absolutely zero. They were taking no new business at all. And at that time was in quite a strong growing economy in the sector that they were in. So they were actually getting smaller by comparison to their competitors. And when we looked at their competitors had overtaken them very substantially. So we had to make some pretty hectic changes to their way of doing business, to their business model, and develop uh, a whole new business campaign and some effective marketing, and we developed some wonderful marketing which really shook up the market very well and changed their situation around very dramatic. But they were making money, and they just had an uneasy feeling, and this is very common among entrepreneurs. They had this uneasy feeling that they could be doing better, but they just didn't know why they weren't or how to do that. And I guess that's not an unfamiliar feeling to a lot of people who may listen into this clubhouse event. That you feel you're doing okay, but there's this nagging feeling that you could do better, and it would be nice to do better. And that is the area where you probably are not analyzing your business as well as you should. And if you want to differentiate between being in a buyer's and a seller's market, it's very necessary to take a long, hard look at your business and say, how is it? How are we here? And we're very good at deluding ourselves. We love to see all the successes. We love to brush under the carpet our failures, our real failures. Oh, we'll boast about, when things went badly wrong and make jokes about them. But when we try and look at and say, how well are we actually doing with what we have compared to, for instance, world standards or competitors or just some kind of industry benchmark, you probably find that you're doing fairly badly, not as well as you could. And that's the first step, is to admit, and then to do a serious analysis on your business, to start thinking about the unthinkable question. And my four favorite unthinkable questions are, first of all, why would anyone buy whatever it is you sell at all? That class of product or service. Why would anyone buy engineering design software or buses or wine or whatever? So the first question you have to answer is that, why is there a market for this stuff? And then the second question, within that market, why would they buy from me with all of the infinite choice that people have? Why would they buy from me? There was an interesting website a little while ago that I stumbled on, which listed specifications of business jets. So you could look on the specs for business jets, and you could get their range and number of seats and seating configuration and number of pilots required and instrument flying capability, and you know, well, all sorts of things, fuel consumption and the rest, and get a specification and a couple of photographs of the jet, and you could tick some option boxes that said you wanted a standard seating arrangement or a lounge seating arrangement or a separate bedroom or whatever you wanted on your private biz jet, and then you could press a button. It wasn't quite add to cart, but you could press a button where that would spew out an automated quotation for you, and you could accept the quotation and make payment arrangements if you had very good credit card facilities or whatever, and the BizJet would deliver to you within a couple of months. Now, if I can buy a business jet, then I can buy just about anything from anywhere in the world that I want. And why would they be buying from you?
Hmm.
And as entrepreneurs, we don't answer that question often. Why you? With all of the infinite choice, what have you got that would suggest that they buy from you? And if you don't know, and most people don't know, then go and ask your customers. Ask them why they buy from you. It sounds a bit dumb to go and do that, but you'd get some surprising answers. A lot of it is simple inertia. They buy from you because they've always bought from you or because they're used to buying from you. Now, that's quite dangerous because someone comes in and rattles their cage and makes them nice offers and they're gone. They're history
Hmm.
to you.
That's right, Ed.
Yeah. We had quite an occasion some while ago. I worked in a little IT, which was incredibly successful, made megabucks, huge profits, sold to capacity, but it wasn't growing. And I was taken on to perhaps add a little bit of system and strategy into the business to see where it was going from there. And I described it at the time, it was a bit like a house of cards, where you knew there were some that were stopping the structure from getting any bigger, and you needed to take those out without collapsing the whole card deck. It was a very delicate operation, but it was successful at the time. The people who were running it had no idea why they were so successful, and it would have been very easy to burst the bubble. The loss of one or two key staff, and that was the end of that organization. So don't put yourself in that position. Take a hard look at yourself and say, why do my customers buy from me? And then the third question is, why now? What would motivate them right now to go and buy from me? And the last question is, why would they buy from me in the future? Why would they continue to buy from me in the future? Now, if you can answer those four questions, then you have all the clues to push yourself well into the seller's market where the people are queuing up to come and buy from you, where you are the choice, you are the go to person or go to business in your sector. But if you can't answer those four questions or any of those four questions, then you're liable to be blown around by whatever the market changes and the competitive changes wherever they drive you. And that's not a nice situation to be in. So, crucially, is to do some analysis for yourself and then just to look. It helps to have an outsider to help you on this because an outsider will look at your your situation without the lenses that you apply um, to look at your own situation. They'll be able to look at a bigger picture than it is likely you will be able. And if you look at just the basic numbers, so many businesses tell me that they're the market leader in their sector. And when you look at the size of the market in their sector, it is manifestly clear that they could not be there. It's just not possible. And it's not difficult to get those sort of numbers. Yeah, a few Google searches and some maybe some trend analysis through Facebook or something like that. You can probably get all that information or from press articles or whatever. So do the basic analysis. Where are you in your sector? Who are your big competitors? And how good are they? Once again, we tend to disparage our competitors. And we've all heard the statement, "Oh, they only get the business because they give away money, or they give bribes, or whatever." I've heard that a million, and yet the competitor would be saying the same thing about you. Can't both be right. So take a hard look and see just how good they are. Maybe speak to some of their customers. Speak to some of your customers. Ask the question, what would someone who wanted to take your business away from us, what would they have to do? That's a tough question for people to ask. They never like asking it because that might give the customer an idea of moving away. So no one likes to rock that particular boat. But I'd rather have it from the customer than find that the next time we sort orders, they said, "No, we're all sorted out." And you've lost that customer probably forever. Because when a customer leaves you, they don't often come back again. It's quite rare. Only if the other party really messes them around would they come back to you again, because they'll be embarrassed to come back and say, "Oh, I was wrong." So they don't do that. So taking a hard look at yourself is the crucial issue. And then once you've got that analysis, you decide, am I really where I want to be in this marketplace? As am I happy? Are we making money? Are we growing at a sufficient rate? Or are we happy just not to grow, to stay where we are? Are we vulnerable to technological change? Are we vulnerable to political influence? Are we vulnerable to economic developments? Are we vulnerable to new environmental laws, or new legislation, or new labor issues? Are we vulnerable to sociological issues? And do the pestle analysis. It's not a difficult thing to do. You can read up about that anyway. Look at your business, and I don't care whether you're a one person business or a 1,000-person business. We don't do these sort of analysis anywhere near as often as we should be. We should really be taking that hard look at ourselves, especially if we're in a crowded environment. So you get into a crowded environment like trainers and motor car dealers and construction companies, um, and retailers, and you're in a very busy environment there with lots of competition and lots of opportunities for the buyer. So if you're not doing this analysis, then you have the big danger that you will just be a me too player in the middle of that market and pick up whatever scraps you can find, as are many of your competitors picking up whatever scraps they can provide. If that satisfies you, that's fine with me. I don't have an argument with that at all. But I think most of us, most entrepreneurs, would like to be better than just getting by. So that's my thoughts for this particular session. Um, a little bit condensed there because I started a bit late. But Jacques, does this ring bells for people that you know? Would it ring bells for them?
Yes, I mean, Ed, you talking about this analysis, and as you were talking, I was generally, I get the response where, okay, where do we find this information? First and foremost, it's having the world to look for this information,
Mm,
and then where do you find it? And you just alluded to the fact that do the basic desktop research. Google
mm,
is your friend. Find out.
mm,
And then the field researchers ask your customers, ask
mm,
them what satisfies them, what do they like the best about what it is you're doing, but also ask your competitors' customers what they
mm,
like best about the particular competitor.
mm,
And but something also struck me in the beginning, or something you said later on, was you think you are the market leader in your sector, and when you actually went and analyzed it, it was nowhere close to the perception that the entrepreneur had. And this is where I think the difficulty is to develop this sustainable competitive advantage statement, if you like. you know, the unique selling proposition
Mm.
in different words. But what we want an entrepreneur to know is, what is it that their customers like best, and do they beat the competition when they deliver that product or service? I mean, if they know what that is, and it's not something that's static, because it may have served them well up until a certain point, but unless you go back to what's happening in your environment, you got to ask that question over and over again. It's not, I've asked it once and therefore it will always prevail. So
Absolutely.
yeah, so those are just my thoughts, Ed, and I think
Yeah.
it's great.
Yeah. No, absolutely. You have to ask that. Just think of the different motivations. For instance, for hiring. Well, let's look at our profession for hiring a mentor
Hmm.
between 2018 and 2022. Even between the start of 2020 and the end of 2021. What would be the differences in the desirability of hiring a mentor? What would be the things that people wanted most from a mentor? And they would be vastly different because of the COVID pandemic. But COVID pandemic was only one of the things that hit us. There's a great economic downturn, mass unemployment, too many people in the labor market and not enough jobs, large sociological issues, um, changes in the political landscape, very significant changes in the political landscape. So all of those things had, and very big changes in the environmental landscape. All of those things had huge factors on what people would expect from a mentor. I
Hmm.
think if we go back to, in the fairly good times, what they'd look for from a mentor is, how am I going to get better? Where am I
Hmm.
missing the opportunities? And if we looked around today, they would say, how do I survive?
Hmm.
How do I start growing again? How do I
Hmm.
re energize my customers? So it would be a very different kind of what would be desirable
Hmm.
along the line. And
Hmm.
then the other thing that I just mentioned, that people don't use it anywhere near as much as they should, is huge source of information is your competitor's own website. Because what do we put on our website? All about us. Oh, well,
Hmm.
we have 14 branches and we employ 138 people and we speak four languages, and you can just go, okay, compare, 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 compare
Yes.
against yourself.
Yes.
And that's just in the About Us. They often publish annual statements or annual reports. They publish, um, a mission and vision statement which says what they aspire to be, so you know the direction of their strategies. Uh, they talk about their customer base and how many customers. They often list the logos of their big customers. Boy, how nice of them,
Hmm.
giving you a target market here. Yeah. So again, there's masses of information around. You don't have to go and engage a market research company and pay them hundreds of thousands of rand to get the basic information that you need. You can do a lot of it yourself, and it doesn't have to be a heavyweight researcher. It can be a fairly low level person that
Hmm.
acquires a large amount of this sort of info. And once you got it, then decide what you want to do with it.
Yeah.
Then that's a different decision. But you're right about that. The information is all there. Easy.
Yes.
With the internet today, everything is a lot easier than it used to be.
Well, that's what we want to encourage our listeners to do.
Hmm.
Um, do the research. The information is at hand. I mean, as the practical example that you're giving is, just go look at what your competitors are doing. What are they saying? What is their profiles? What is
Hmm.
it that they think gives them a competitive edge? And but it's all information that kind of helps you locate where you at relative to what the competitor is. You don't want to stare yourself blind at what the competitors are doing and end up being a follower, but be aware what they are
Hmm.
doing. And that's the strong message that we're giving you, and be very aware of what your customers like about your services or don't like about your services. Don't be afraid to get frank, honest feedback.
I saw a competitor's website of one of my clients when I persuaded them to have a look. We looked at this competitor's website on their own, and one of their goals for the year was to acquire major customers of all of their competitors. So they were on an aggressive trail to go and steal my client's major customers. And my client hadn't been aware of that. And there it was on the internet, it was on their website. They were making it very obvious.
Wow.
So we had a fairly quick shuffle of defensive strategies there.
So, yep, we completely out of time, but thank you for that, Ed. Thank you for that encouragement. And we just want to encourage our listeners, take from what we are talking about, take something, apply it. It's when you apply it, you see the fruit of that application. And something will change. If you keep on doing the same thing, that's what the adage of that's a measure of insanity when you're expecting different results. So try something new, experiment a bit, and that's what we want to leave you with today. So once again, have a good week, experiment, and we will see you again